Yo, what is up everybody? Welcome back to Joe's Garage. In today's video, we're going to be replacing this 2008 Honda CRV ball joint. I'm going to show you exactly how I know it's bad, and without wasting any time, let's jump right into the work. Now, to show you a quick and easy way to determine if the ball joint's bad, what you're going to do is jack the car up in the air, which we already have done, and just give the wheel a little bit of a wiggle. What I'll do is take you guys behind the wheel and show you the actual ball joint where it's loose. At a first glance, that's not the wheel turning with the steering wheel. That is a loose ball joint. You'll know if you go left to right, it's the ball joint. If you go up and down, generally that's your hub bearing or your bearing that's bad. But if you're going left to right like this, you can kind of guess it's a ball joint. And I'll show you from behind where you can actually identify that. Now, this might be a little difficult to see from this angle, but right here is your ball joint. It's what connects the hub assembly to the control arm. And right where I'm pointing at, right here is where you'll see the movement, and I'm not sure if you can see that in the camera. I'll try and zoom in and show you guys, and all I'm doing is giving it a little push. And there's a few things you can look for if your wheel's loose like this. It might not necessarily mean it is the ball joint. It could be a tie rod and a few other things like your hub bearing, but in this case I'm fairly confident that it's the ball joint. So we're gonna go ahead and get that removed and put a new one in there. I got the heavier duty one from AutoZone because we want this thing to last. Let's go ahead, rip off the tire, and I'll get you guys a better look at that ball joint and what it looks like with the tire off. Just go ahead and grab this wheel. So now that we have the wheel off, you can get a better shot of what we're working with here. Let's see if I could just wiggle it by hand. Oh yeah, that's a perfect shot. Let me make sure I'm getting that. You could really see, I'm not sure in the camera, but to the naked eye, you can just see how much movement there really is right there. And that is a bad ball joint. Honda makes this actually pretty easy because it will all unbolt, nothing is pressed in. So we're gonna just knock this out really quick and get it swapped out and put the new one in. I'll show you guys what they look like before and after, what they look like next to each other, and we will have this job done nice and easy. So the two nuts and bolt that hold the ball joint to the control arm are 17 millimeters. We're going to go ahead and break that free, and then we'll get this castle nut off with the cotter pin going through it, get that detached before I loosen them all the way. You might actually need to use the deep well socket. That's what I'm going to do. All right, here we go. Okay, that's one. That's two. And just like that, those three are ready to come off. We're gonna go ahead and get this castle nut off now. I think I'll need a box wrench for that. Okay, so you have to remove this cotter pin here, and then I'm pretty sure this will break free and not have any issues with it. So to remove the cotter pin, I'll be using these needle nose pliers. Oh, it's a little tighter than I expected. We'll go from underneath maybe, kind of get it hooked. Oh yeah, it's coming. Okay, the cotter pin, you know what, I think I needed to bend it a little bit, but that's okay. No big deal. So I have the 19 box wrench here, and I believe it could be an 18, but due to the rust, it really doesn't want to go on. But you can just see I got my 19 on there. There's a little bit of play, but we're gonna go for it. Oh. Go from the other side. It's a little tighter than expected. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a kick. That did it. Okay. It's a little rusty, just a little rusty. That's okay. We'll go ahead and get this off. Hopefully the ball joint doesn't start spinning on us. So what I'm going to do to get this ball joint separated from the hub is put a little bit of pressure on it with a chisel, and when I do that, I'm gonna hit it with a hammer, and the shock will most likely break it free. I might need a bigger chisel, I can't tell. All right, the chisel's in there pretty solid. Let's go ahead and give it a couple taps and see if we can get this thing out. It's being a little stubborn. By removing the castle nut now, if I do happen to break it free, I won't have to worry about squeezing it again to remove the castle nut. Okie dokie. Now, because that little chisel wasn't working, I do have a large chisel we're gonna attempt to use. And if that chisel doesn't work, we're gonna go ahead and use a nice fork that I have that'll really get its way in there. But we're gonna go ahead and try this chisel first. It just does not want to seat the proper way. It's actually where I need to go. That's not gonna work. I have one more chisel to try. All right, we're just gonna go ahead and use the fork and see if we can get it. Okay, the fork did it. Very good. Now that we have the ball joint broken free from the hub, all we need to do is remove the 17mm nuts and the one bolt, and this should come right off the control arm, and then we could just install the new one. Every time I go to use this tool, the battery's dead. Okay, you get the two nuts and the bolt. And then if we bring this control arm down, I'll use a pry bar. Kind of gotta find the sweet spot here. You gotta get that top where the castle nut was low enough out of the hub. Just like that. There we go. And voila, here's the ball joint. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this out and let you guys see what the good one looks like. If you guys are watching at this point of the video, make sure to give me a thumbs up so this video reaches a wider audience. I think this video could be helpful to people that want to replace the ball joint on their Hondas. If you have any questions about this job or anything else I do, make sure to leave me some comments in the section below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Thank you for watching. I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys the new ball joint and the old ball joint side by side, and we're just gonna go ahead and get that thing installed. You can see I have the brand new ball joint in my hand. It's the exact same setup, and this is actually a heavy duty setup. There was a cheaper version and I went with the more expensive, heavier duty option just because this is a friend of mine's car and I really want it to last longer. Overall, they look pretty much exactly the same. The boot is a little bit nicer on the newer ball joint. The height and depth is about the same. Everything looks good. This is a Duralast product. I got it from AutoZone. I do want to point out that in the Duralast box, they did provide me with 2 new nuts, a bolt, and a new castle nut, which is really nice because that other one was completely rusted out, and a new cotter pin. So Duralast really provided me everything I need for this job. So we're gonna go ahead and install this, then I'll do an overall summary of the entire job. Okay, so because there's two studs here, I think it's easier to set the ball joint into the control arm first. I'm not sure about that. It is definitely tight to get this in here, so we're just gonna do our best. There's no easy way to just get it in. You don't want to hurt anything here, so kind of set it here. See if we could just pull this hub out a little bit. Okay, that was easy enough. And then we're just gonna go ahead and push the control arm down. Maybe I could do it by hand. Okay. I really didn't even need to use a pry bar. I did it all by hand. Now getting this lined up a little better will be a little tricky. There we go. Perfect. So now I'm gonna go ahead and open up this little nice pack we got with all of our new hardware. Get the castle nut out. Here we are. And I'll go ahead and just slightly thread the castle nut so this is nice and it doesn't slip back out. Okay, so we have the castle nut on slightly. We're gonna go ahead and just slightly put on the nuts and the bolt also. This way nothing can come apart on us. And we're gonna actually just make sure this bolt starts. Everything's got to be lined up for this to go in its place. All right, there we go. So now what we're gonna do is, this castle nut's a little bigger than the OEM one. I'm gonna go ahead and grab the wrench we need, snug that down a little bit, tighten up everything kind of in rotation so everything kind of lines up the way it needs to go, and we're almost finished. This castle nut is actually a 21 millimeter and the original was a 19, so yeah, it's a little bit bigger, nothing crazy. We're gonna go ahead and snug this up a little bit. Now that we have the castle nut a little bit tightened up, we're gonna go ahead, grab the wrench, and snug up the rest of the three underneath. Okay, they upped the size on the two nuts. Also, it was a 17, now it's an 18. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and tighten those with an actual wrench just to make sure we got them the way we need them. Okay, there's one. And the bolt is the 17 millimeter. The 18 millimeters are the nuts. That's nice and tight. Okay. Now we can tighten the castle nut and use the cotter pin. I'm gonna go one more and really just make sure it's nice and tight. Oh yeah, oh yeah, it's not going anywhere. Oh yeah, that's nice. And then we gotta grab our cotter pin. Here we are. I love that it's a new one. Get it in there, hopefully I can. I might need to snug it just a hair more to get the cotter pin in. just a hair. Okay. There we go. And there you have it. The new ball joint is installed and it is rock solid. Now what I'm gonna do is just install the wheel and show you guys what it is like with the wheel on as I attempt to shake it, because the wheel gives a little more leverage, and that's a little bit more like what it would be like when it's driving. The wheel would be on and you'd feel it jouncing. But that's it, guys. Overall, super easy. If you haven't seen my previous video on a ball joint, it was on my wife's 2017 Nissan Rogue, and I swear it took over 5 hours. Extremely difficult setup, terrible design by Nissan. This Honda, super easy, friendly to work on, and I would definitely give it like a 10 out of 10. If you want to try this at home, I think you'll have no issues with it. Just take your time, make sure you get everything on, hand tighten before you go and tighten everything down so you don't strip anything. There's really not much room for error here there's plenty of room for error. I don't know, one of those sayings, you know what I mean. Not hard at all, definitely can do it at home yourself. Let's get this wheel on, show you guys how tight it is, drop this thing, and close this video out. If you're gonna do this job at home, I don't suggest you installing the rim with a impact gun. I've done this over a million times. I'm comfortable doing it. I know none of the threads are stripped because I hand tightened the lugs all the way on by hand. Really nothing to worry about. I'm not gonna over torque them. The car's gonna be with me for a few more days. I have a few other things we're gonna be doing to this car, but that's how I'm torquing them down for today. So don't try this at home, I guess I should have said. And that's all done. Let's see how tight it is. Now you can see any movement is actually with the steering rack. Everything is extremely tight down there, and with just a very light push, there's absolutely no movement. But if I really want to go on it real crazy, I could turn the wheel now with it a little bit because it's actually tight enough. But just looking at it from here, it's nice and tight, and I'm gonna give it a double thumbs up. Alright guys, that's it for this video. Overall, super easy. I needed a few tools, just a 17mm socket for the 3 bolts and nuts underneath, and a 19mm to remove the castle nut from the top of the ball joint. I used a pry bar to kind of break it down, and then I used this fork. Let me grab that. I used this fork right here. I pounded it around the ball joint just like so. Here we go. Just like that, so I could pry in there and wiggle it down. That broke it free. I just got this thing out of the way, installed the new one, and for the Duralast I used I think it was a 21mm box wrench for the castle nut, and it was a 17mm for the bolt itself underneath, and then it was a 18mm for the 2 nuts. And overall the job went really easy. I would definitely suggest you to do this yourself before you take it to a shop and pay $300. If you guys watched this video, thank you so much. Definitely make sure to thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, Any questions you have, make sure to comment for me. Later on this week, I will be detailing this Honda, and I'll give you guys a glimpse of what we're looking at. The paint is pretty marred just from our Ohio weather and driving it through the winter time. It's got oxidization, the headlight needs to be polished. I'm gonna do an overall one-stage polish on this thing, and I think it's gonna come out looking beautiful. I am gonna be doing the interior also, so if that's something you're interested, make sure to stay tuned to the channel. Like I said, subscribe so you can see when I'm dropping new videos. Thank you so much for your support, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.